Hello, my name is Steven, and welcome to our next tutorial where we have installed the Abyss web server from Aprelium on Debian Linux. We have our web server properly running here, and we also have the console, the GUI where we manage the web server, and we'll be delving into this a little bit later. But today we are going to learn how to download PHP on our Linux system, and then we are going to integrate that with Abyss. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to PuTTY. You could also do this from the server itself if you would so choose. And I am logged in already as the user account of user. And we need to update our packages on our system, the Debian package list. So we're going to type sudo apt-get update. And then let's also run sudo apt-get upgrade.
And just install the things that may have come down to Debian Linux packages. And so it's just a good thing to do.
So we've just updated our Linux kernel apparently to 4.9.0.8. Wonderful. Okay, now we want to learn a little bit about what is all this apt-get stuff. Well, first of all, apt is short for aptitude. That is the package manager on Debian Linux. And if you want to find information about a potential package you want to download, you would type apt-cache, and then you type the word search, and then you type in what you're looking for. Which, if you're looking for PHP, now I'll tell you in advance we're going to get a lot of results, way more than we need, but we're going to search for PHP. And you can see we got a lot of possibilities returned. And so it's finding everything with PHP in it, or even PHP in the description. Most of the PHP stuff is going to be prefixed with the letters PHP, and you can see these are modules for PHP, which we'll be installing some of those here in just a moment. And so that was the apt-cache search. So if you happen to know what you're looking for, but not exactly, you can type that in and find perhaps what you need. Now, this tells us a little bit about it. How can we get more information? apt-cache show PHP. And you'll see that command returns this information, the package name. We have the version number. We have a dependency, because PHP isn't the real name of the package. As the version of PHP changes, we have PHP 7.0, and that's the actual package that PHP will install. And you can get the MD5 of this description up here, and you get the MD5 of the package itself, just for verification purposes. There's a little shortcut. If we don't need the hashes, we can just do apt show PHP. See, it's a little less information, kind of more to the point. And so apt show, and then your package name, you can get information. Okay, now we're going to actually install PHP. We need to, since we are logged in as user, we need to type sudo apt-get install PHP, php-cgi, and we'll install some modules that are some of the more standard ones. These are the ones that I find myself using, and I imagine that you will want them as well. And you can always install them later, but we'll just do it all in one fell swoop. php-curl, that's for grabbing web pages. php-gd, that's for working with images. php-ssh2, I imagine you want MySQL down the road, so php-mysql. php-mbstring for multi-byte characters, and php-xml. And this is going to take just a little while to install all of this. It tells us that we are going to require about 30 megabytes more of space in order to install these packages, and we just say yes, and it springs into action. And it runs through the installation process. And done. All right, that wasn't too bad. So now you can verify the PHP is installed on your system. There's a command in Linux that will tell you the location of an executable if it's in the path of your environment variables. So just type which PHP, and it will tell us the path to the PHP interpreter is /user/bin/PHP. So if we type, for instance, PHP-V, it already knows, since since user bin is in the path for the environment variable, it knows if we just type PHP that it's supposed to reference this executable here. And so we have the version, we can see it's installed, everything looks good. All right, now I want to tell you about something else, another command in PHP, or Linux rather, where you can learn a lot of information about executables on your system. And that would be man, short for manual, and we can load in the manual page for PHP. And you just type in man PHP, and you get all sorts of options. And we can, as it tells us at the bottom, press H for help or Q to quit. And there's a lot more information here. We can access that by typing the page down command or key on our keyboard. All sorts of information you can learn here. And you can do that for man, and you can do the copy command, CP, and you can find all the different parameters you can specify. And so if you want to learn about Linux, what can this command do for me? Man pages are the answer. Man and then the command. Let's go ahead and upload a couple files into our web server directory. Now I am logged in under root in WinSCP. I've got a couple images that I'm going to put in my server web documents folder. This is a screenshot back from 10 years ago. And what's funny about it, and the reason I saved this screenshot, is because this is office.microsoft.com. This is their advertisement, and they're advertising the top 5 product key activation challenges. 2 misspelled words in a row. I thought that was funny, so I saved a screenshot. Very interesting there. Okay, so that's the Windows Add Poor Spelling PNG file. Then I have another, and that is going to be this IE7 advertisement. Again, back in Internet Explorer. I think that's version 6. It might be version 5. And you can see that they're advertising Internet Explorer 7, and you can see it didn't exactly render very well. Okay, so those are the 2 files. I'm going to upload one of those files to my server with WinSCP. I'll go ahead and do the IE7 advertisement. And it just has the options we want for drag and drop. We just hit OK. And you can see there it is. Now something to note, when we create files in our public HTML directory, we made it so that files would automatically inherit the permissions of RW, RWR, and be owned by the group of www. So we just uploaded our file, and it's the bottom one here. And you can see it's owned by root because I'm, of course, logged in as root. It is owned by the group www, but the permissions, well, those aren't what I want. And why is that? Well, I actually don't know the answer to that question. I do know how to fix it, though. Under Transfer Settings, up here at the top, hit the down arrow and hit Configure. And you can set different file types. You can set options regarding their transfer. So the default, we can hit Edit, and we can set the permissions however we wish. And so if we go ahead and do that and hit OK, then the files would transfer with the permissions that we set. So just want to make you aware of that fact. Now we're going to go ahead and fix this in just a minute. I could fix it by going to Properties for an individual file and modify it that way. I can use the Control key and press multiple files, and I could edit the properties that way. And you can see This square inside the square means that some of the files have this attribute, some do not. But we're going to do it in the command line. We're going to work upon all the files in the directory and subfolders as well. And I'll show you that here in just a little bit. Okay, so WinSCP by default does not inherit the permissions that files are supposed to in our public HTML directory. Okay, FileZilla. I logged in. I just typed in sftp:// the IP address. And you can make an entry in the site manager if you want as well, or you can put it in the quick connect bar. User password. If you change the port from the default 22, then you'd have to enter your port. Okay, I'm already logged in here. We'll refresh. We can see that file's already there, and you can see the permissions, the ownership as well. Okay, so let's copy this file. Done. All right, and you can see I'm logged in as user this time, and you can see that the permissions I want are proper. And so FileZilla does it correctly, and so FileZilla might be the better choice for transferring files in the future. Okay, now let's go ahead and affect the permissions. We'll go to our public HTML folder. One more tip, by the way. You notice these are my past commands. I'm accessing them by hitting the up arrow key. Or I can scroll back down. And so that's just a handy way of performing old commands that you've executed in Bash, the command prompt here. Okay, so our permissions, you can see again that this IE7 advertisement PNG does not have group right permissions. We want to change that. Okay, so watch very carefully. This command is kind of long. Find public HTML folder. Now, since I'm already in the public HTML folder, I could have just used the dot, but it's going to be a lot safer if we use an absolute path, just in case we're not in public HTML next time, because we only want it to apply the operation we're doing to the public HTML folder. Okay, then we're going to type -type F. That means all files. If I type D, it would show us the directories, but we want the files. -print 0, then a space, then the pipe character. That's just a straight up and down line. You'll notice it's not the brackets and it's not the braces. It's the pipe character. It's just a straight line up and down. So after the pipe, we're going to type x-args, x-args. If you want to learn more about that, type man x-args. -0. Now we can actually tell the command that we want to be applied to every file in the public HTML folder, including all files in all of the subfolders. So we're going to set the permissions chmod u for user, the owner of the file. It's going to get read and write permissions. The group is going to get read and write permissions also, and all others, they'll have read permission. Now, let me also mention we need to type sudo in front of the find command. Now the pipe command actually executes another command based on the output of the find command. So for this, we need to also type sudo. Technically, we don't need the sudo in front of find. That doesn't need elevated privileges, but we'll leave it that way anyways. And so we have sudo in front of both commands, and now it should run and work properly. There we go. All right, it's been applied. Let's look at our permissions again. And now you notice all the files have the same permissions. If I had a subfolder and I had files in there, they would also be operated on to have these permissions. Now, what if you want to change the ownership? You'll notice that the IE7 advertisement is owned by root and then the www group. Okay, let's change the command that we had just executed. So I'm going to type the up arrow key. We get back to this command that we executed just a moment ago, and we're going to do, instead of chmod, we're going to do chown, and we'll just make everything abyss in the group of www. And it's done. And there you go. Everything is owned by Abyss www. And so a handy command to keep around, you want to maybe save this in a notepad document. I keep a notepad document full of Linux commands so that I can reference them later. So this one you probably want to save and keep on hand if you should need to do this in the future. Okay, now you may remember quite a while ago I told you that you could run PHP from the command line. Let me show you how to do that. First, let's get out of the public HTML folder, and I'm going to create the directory of demo again. And what we're going to do here is we're going to create a file, just call it test.php. We are then going to give the execute permission to it. So chmod, we're going to type user plus execute, which is the file owner, group plus execute, and all others will be able to execute it. Now this is not very safe by giving everyone execute permission. I'm just doing this as a demo for you. And of course I need to do sudo on that. And I need to specify the file name. There we go. Now you see we have execute, execute for group, execute for everybody. And you'll see, since it's now an executable, it turned green. Now we're going to go into Nano. We're going to edit test.php. And since I do not have write permissions, I need to run this as sudo. Now I mentioned something called the shebang line. In order to make this executable just by the file name itself, I need to put in the £, then an exclamation point, and then the path to PHP. This was the result of the command which PHP that we executed a little while ago. And then I can just enter regular PHP code, echo, hello world, and of course we need our quotes. And I'm going to put a new line character in there as well. And we'll just leave it at that. We'll save it, type Y, Control X to exit, Y to save, and then we type in the file name here. And there we go. And you can see that this file now takes up 46 bytes, and you can see it was just modified. Now, we can run test.php by typing in a period and a slash, test.php, hello world. And so that's a handy-dandy way of running things from the command line if you need scripts to run, but you don't want them to be run by the web server. I'm going to go ahead and remove this file. And it's not going to let me because I have to do sudo. So we'll just say no. There we go. I'm going to remove the directory of sudo, of demo. And when you're deleting a directory, you need the -R. It stands for recursive. It'll delete everything inside the folder and the folder itself. And the demo folder is gone. Okay, now we need to go into our Abyss console, and we are going to enable PHP within the web server. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to click on Configure for the default host here. And then we need to go to Scripting Parameters. What we need to do first is add an interpreter. We want to run this as fast CGI local pipes. That is the fastest way to do it. The interpreter is going to be /user/bin/php-CGI. If you need any special arguments, you can enter them here. Like for instance, if you wanted to modify the send mail from, and this is a directive you'll find in your PHP any file, and you can put a lot of different PHP any file directives here. Send mail from, and then you can put an email address, and PHP will run with that argument. If you need to specify multiple arguments, you could do another -d and put in your next argument. We don't need any of those. We're going to set the type to PHP style, and we need to give the associated extension of PHP. This will make all PHP files be executed using this interpreter. And it's good to leave the check for file existence before execution and use the associated extensions to automatically update the script paths. So those are the defaults, and we want to go ahead and hit OK. And now the configuration has changed. We need to restart to apply the modifications. Now I'm going to show you a little trick real quick. We have to restart. We hit OK. We hit OK again. If you hit restart through the browser, it takes about 15 seconds, and this is an arbitrarily set length of time. If you want it to go faster, let me show you what to do. We'll type sudo service abyss ws restart. Done. Now you can refresh this, and this piece of information will disappear. Gone. So it's been restarted, and it was a lot faster. Now if you want to know how much time it takes to restart your server, it will depend on your configuration, but we can find that out by typing time. If you type time and then you type in a command, it will tell you how long it took to execute that command. And you can see here, it took 5.02 seconds. So it's a lot faster than running the restart command in the browser. So that's just a little shortcut there. Okay, we need to find out if PHP is running, so let's create a file that has the extension of PHP. I'm going to log in here with WinSCP. I'm going to type new file, and we'll just call this info.php. Okay, it brings up an editor. It doesn't actually create the file, I believe, until we save it. So let's just do the php info command. I type Control-S to save. And now you'll see the info PHP is there. And it's not group writable. So we can go ahead and change that. Now notice I'm not giving the execute bit to this file because the web server doesn't need the files to be executable to run them. In fact, it's not technically executing them, it's reading them. Okay, so let's go here and we'll type info.php. There we go. So PHP is up and running successfully. Now I'll show you just a little bit more about the configuration here. If we go to scripting parameters, we have fast CGI parameters. Since we're running it under the fast CGI interface, these two, CGI and ISAPI, they don't apply. So we go here, and we can set where the CGI or fast CGI error log will wind up. And you can browse your system, you can put it wherever you want your log files to go. You can specify the level, how much information you want. Processing details is going to give you a lot of information. You can set the timeout. Abyss will only wait 30 seconds for a script to complete. And then a fast CGI process timeout. And you can click here and you can find out what all these commands mean in more detail. And Abyss does give you very granular control over the fast CGI processes that are running. And you can access that under clicking this edit pencil icon under the interpreter, and you can go into advanced parameters. Now I'm not going to explain all these things. You can simply click the help icon. It'll give you some information, and if you don't understand it, then just leave things the way they are. But anyways, that's always good to know in case you need to manage your memory very carefully or different things like that. You can control what processes are running for fast CGI. All right, so we have accomplished everything we've wanted to do today in this tutorial. We have downloaded the PHP package and a few modules for it. We have explained the manual on the command line, just typing man and then the command. We have also learned how we can apply permissions and ownership to all files in a directory. And again, you want to keep that command handy. And I'll go ahead and show it to you one more time. And so you may want to type that out and save it in a notepad in a text document somewhere on your system. And then we talked about the shebang line in your PHP scripts, where you can run a script directly from the command line. And we have PHP installed in Abyss, and it's up and running. And so that will be the end of this tutorial today. We'll install some other packages in the next tutorial, MySQL and Samba for file sharing and different things like that. Stay tuned for the next tutorial, and I'll catch you later.